Journaling. Recording your thoughts and experiences either daily, weekly, or whenever you feel like it. There is no official distinction between journaling and keeping a diary, only personal connotations associated with each. Some people associate diaries with documenting daily events chronologically, and journals with writing about thoughts and emotions in no particular order. But there is no general consensus. The two terms even share the same etymology. Diary derives from the Latin word diarium, meaning daily allowance, with dies meaning day. The word journal shares a similar root. It derives from diurnus, meaning of the day. So they mean the same thing, and as far as I'm aware, it's a very recent phenomenon that people started making a distinction between them. I'm going to use both terms interchangeably throughout this video. So what are people journaling about? That's difficult to answer with a blanket statement. Journaling is such a personal experience, it can be about pretty much anything. While researching for this video, I asked my mom what comes to mind when she hears journaling or keeping a diary. She said, writing about your feelings, telling your journal things you can't share with others. That was interesting. She wasn't aware of the variety in journaling, so much so that she didn't even realize she's keeping a diary herself. She told me she documents what she did each day in her planner. Well, that's a diary you're keeping there, Mom. There are a lot of misconceptions about this hobby. Some people associate diaries with something feminine and childish. This might have originated in the 90s and early 2000s, when keeping diaries was heavily marketed towards little girls for some reason. And we're all aware of the stereotype that talking about your feelings is a feminine thing to do. But history shows that keeping diaries is by no means a hobby reserved to women. We'll get to history a bit later. The classic entry is about the events of the day and your thoughts and feelings regarding them.
I went to the park and it rained. Nice.
Like, today I woke up late, so I had to hurry to catch my bus. Work was exhausting, but afterwards I went to the cinema and really enjoyed the film. Or maybe you've read something like this before. September 18th, 1545. Today did I milk the kine, yet alas, I stumbled with the pail, and the accursed milk did spill all about, befouling my new pattens. That knave Reginald espied the mishap, and will not still his wagging tongue upon the matter. How I do loathe my own life. It can be as short or long as you like, and you can write as frequently as you want. Even if you just write summaries of the past week or month. You can start your entries with the stereotypical Dear Diary, or just jump right into it. There really is no right or wrong way of writing in your personal journal or diary. You can solely focus more on the experiences you've had or on your thoughts and emotions. Theoretically, you don't even have to write about what happened to you. You could also write about observations you've made. There are no rules to journaling, except for this one, I guess. Anyways, if you would like to journal but don't know what to write about because you think your life isn't exciting enough, check out this video by Sketchbook School. And afterwards you will find the most mundane things pretty exciting.
Life is actually brimming with stories. Even the familiar view from the window of your bus, changing with the seasons, that's a story unfolding day by day.
Now you know the most common way of journaling, but let's look at more versions. There's a specific type of journaling where you quickly write out the first thing that comes to your mind. Even if it doesn't make any sense at all, or if it's just, I don't know what to write about, over and over, until you switch to, I'm not sure I'm doing this correctly. That's a strange way to start my day. But this coffee is really good. And you follow that thought wherever it takes you. Then you've successfully completed a journaling session called Stream of Consciousness. Some people incorporate this into their morning routine when they're still a bit sleepy and therefore expect to apply less of a filter when writing. By the way, stream of consciousness was originally a narrative style in literature. According to the Dictionary of Literary Terms and Literary Theory by J.A. Cudden, the method is supposed to depict the thoughts and feelings which pass through the mind of the narrator. Some of you might have also seen Mac's diary in Life is Strange, or Joel's journal entry in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Both are examples for visual journals. They are a distinct type of journal where your experiences, thoughts, and emotions aren't expressed just with words, but also, or even solely, through visual art. And it doesn't matter which art. It can be drawings, collages, comic strips, watercolor, or whatever you can think of. They differ from some art journals where the art doesn't necessarily represent that day or an experience. A lot of people decorate their journals with stickers, washi tape, unrelated drawings, or other embellishments. Those aren't necessarily visual journals either, unless the decorations themselves express something relating to the entry. Like how it's often done in scrapbooking, where you decorate your pages with movie tickets, cut out news articles, etc. However, the boundaries between journaling types are very fluid, and there is no official system with plenty of overlap. Another popular type is gratitude journaling. It is said to have originated from studies that were conducted by psychologists Dr. Robert Emmons and Dr. Michael McCullough, who researched the effects of gratitude on well-being, asking participants to list things they were grateful for. Make a mental note here because I'll explain this study in more detail later in the video. Disclaimer, I'm not affiliated with the study or the American Psychology Association, and they don't endorse my commentary or the video. The gratitude journaling we know today isn't that much different compared to the one used in the study. You're supposed to write down things you're grateful for, either by simply listing a couple of them or describing in detail why you're grateful for them. They can be people, circumstances, objects, seemingly insignificant, like the new episode of your favorite show dropping tonight, or life-altering, like having loving parents. You decide. If you need some help with this or any other journaling method, there are a lot of useful prompts online that you can draw inspiration from. Like, what do you most enjoy about nature? Or what is one small thing that made your day better? There are so many more journaling types, I can't get into detail about all of them. But here's a quick rundown on some other popular ones. I can summarize a lot of them under the category theme diaries. Journaling about a specific topic, like food and your nutrition, dreams you've had, movies and shows you've watched and what you think of them, about your hobbies and how you're progressing in them, your D&D sessions, documenting your workouts, writing about your travels, recording your thoughts about philosophical questions, and much, much more. I'd say everything you can document or ponder about can be turned into a journal. You should choose something that makes the most sense for you. Think about why you want to journal. What do you hope to get out of it? Do you want to journal to clear your mind, get to know yourself, or do you want to have your memories documented? I record memories I'd like to keep because that's my personal reason for journaling. Like when I attended a concert, explored an ice cave, built my PC, or played Baldur's Gate 3 for the first time. I enjoy recapping these days and reading them back years later. In the past, I used to just write about whatever came to my mind and also tried different methods. But that didn't really do anything for me personally. I didn't enjoy writing or reading these entries, so I changed my method. And that's the beauty of journaling. It's flexible, adapts to your needs, and evolves with you. However, there aren't just differences when it comes to the way people journal, but also the medium. When I say journaling, a lot of you probably have a notebook and a pen in mind, but you can get really creative with your journaling medium. The most interesting one I have personally seen is by the Stir Crazy Crafter on Instagram. She chose embroidery to document what's happening in her life. I would say this is a highly unusual and clever example of visual journaling, because every little piece on here represents a life event and only the owner truly knows what it stands for. If that's something you'd like to try, check out their socials I've linked in the description for resources. Another way could be video journaling. In a way, vlogs on YouTube are video journals. Sure, the purpose is usually to entertain an audience, but I've heard many creators say that they enjoy looking back at old videos, documenting their lives. Not only do they have a verbal record, but also visual documentation taken right in the moment.
The hike got a lot more intense.
And you obviously don't need to publish your entries, you can keep them private. All you need to start is your phone camera and very basic editing skills to cut all your clips together. Or you could just record voice memos and keep a journal this way. There are also pre-printed journals that come with built-in prompts, so all you have to do is respond to the questions or topics provided. They are very restrictive, but beginners often value the guidance and inspiration they offer. And they're so-called 5-year journals, where you can write an entry every day for 5 years and then compare entries from specific dates over the years. They're great for tracking progress of something, like the development of your child or your time at college, but they also limit how much you can write in that little space. Of course, there's also the option to write a digital journal on whatever device you prefer. There are dedicated apps and programs you can use on your computer or phone, but you could also just write in your Notes app or a Word document. While I personally prefer handwriting a journal, the digital version has some great benefits. One of them is the efficiency and accessibility of a digital journal. It doesn't take up space, and if you journal on your phone, you can bring it everywhere without carrying extra. But another one is privacy. Privacy is a big concern with physical journals. I keep reading horror stories of people having their privacy violated by their curious family members, partners, or friends, and keeping them out of a physical notebook is difficult. You either have to hide it very well or lock it up somewhere. There are journals with locks, but most of them can be read anyways.
I do see it, 427, and that worked. Figured it out by being able to see the notches.
A digital journal can be secured with a password and is much safer in that regard. Although journals are normally intended to be private, many published diaries offer unique insights into history and have had profound impact. One of them being the diary of Anne Frank. Her unique perspective as a young girl hiding from the Nazis from 1942 to 1944 has become essential reading at many schools. Her father, when asked in an interview why he published her diaries, explained that family friends urged him to do so, emphasizing the historical importance. When asked about regrets, he quoted Anne's words, "I want to go on living after my death," and through her diaries, she would live on in many hearts. Wondering if the isolation caused her infatuation with nature, she wrote, quote, "It's not just my imagination. Looking at the sky, the clouds, the moon and the stars really does make me feel calm and hopeful. Nature makes me feel humble and ready to face every blow with courage." End quote. It's rare that we get such an intimate first-hand account of history from those who lived through it, especially from a child's perspective. While books may document our collective history, diaries document a personal and individual history, offering a level of detail often overlooked by broader historical accounts told in retrospect. Some diaries were even written with educational intent, like the one by August Friedrich Kellner. Kellner was a social democrat during the rise of the Nazis in Germany and was publicly outspoken against them. He was facing severe repercussions for his activities, and him and his wife Pauline were eventually threatened with deportation to a concentration camp. While he continued speaking up against the Nazis when he could, he also started writing diaries to at least warn future generations of them. His own words explain best why he did. Quote, "I could not fight the Nazis in the present, as they had the power to still my voice. So I decided to fight them in the future. I would give the coming generations a weapon against any resurgence of such evil. My eyewitness account would record the barbarous acts and also show the way to stop them." End quote. His diary expanded to 10 volumes, serving as a monument to the resistance movement. Another interesting example is the diary by Captain Robert Scott, who wrote about the British Antarctic expedition from 1910 to 1913 that tragically failed due to, quote, "misfortune in all risks which had to be undertaken," end quote. Scott captured the last moments of him and his team in his diary before succumbing to death. It's very bleak, but worth reading. Mary Chestnut journaled about the Confederacy's collapse during the American Civil War. Her entries reveal a personal perspective on these events. According to Wikipedia, she was, quote, "forthright about the complex and fraught situations related to slavery, particularly the abuses of women's sexuality and the power exercised by white men," end quote. While her diary offers valuable insights, keep in mind that her views reflect the biases and privileges of her status as a white Southern woman. Some language and perspectives may be considered highly inappropriate today. Samuel Pepys wrote about important events in London from 1660 to 1669, like the Great Plague of 1665, and he also offered a personal insight into the social, economic, and political aspects of that era. The following excerpt puts into perspective how dire the situation was while the plague was rampant. Quote, "To hear that poor Paine, my waiter, hath buried a child, and is dying himself. One of my own watermen that carried me daily fell sick as soon as he had landed me on Friday morning, and is now dead of the plague. Lastly, both my servants have lost their fathers of the plague this week. Do put me into great apprehensions of melancholy, and with good reason." End quote. One diary I find particularly interesting is written by Ferdinand Beneke, a jurist and Republican from Hamburg, Germany. He wrote 3,904 pages from 1792 to 1848, documenting Napoleon's occupation of Hamburg during the French Revolution, his personal struggles, love stories, and family developments. He did so because, quote, "one is not always able to share all the greater and lesser events of one's life with true friends. Distance from them is usually to blame," end quote. And the way he wrote was quite unusual. His diaries are almost literary. He wrote about his own life as if it's a novel, as if it was meant to be read by others. Even about things as mundane as the weather, quote, harshly biting, dry east wind with a dusting of sand and mocking sunshine. Damn climate, end quote. Or his particular disdain for hyenas, quote, the hyena is surely the most grotesque creature among animals. The filthy brown of its bristles, the hideous broad body, the miserable dog-like paws, all combine to create an image of the most abhorrent thing imaginable in the moral world, end quote. Beneke was also exceptionally mindful of his thoughts and emotions, and described in great detail how he likely suffered from depression. Quote, it was a discord in my soul, as if an organist, in distraction, had left his hand resting too long on a key that no longer fits, end quote. Beneke's diary also offers a valuable insight into the political climate during these times, and his opinions of it, like how he refused to illuminate his house in honor of Napoleon. Many more diaries were written outside of these major historical events, and they might seem mundane at first, but they too offer valuable insights into societal norms and customs, everyday practices of home economics, early sanitation standards, and much more. Initiatives like the Great Diary Project at Bishopsgate Institute and the German Archives for Diaries recognize the importance of preserving these narratives for future generations, showcasing how valuable personal diaries are for understanding history. But when did people actually start recording their daily lives in journals? The oldest book that resembles a diary was found in Egypt and was written around 2500 BC. It is called The Diary of Merer and described the transportation of limestone, most likely by builders working on the Great Pyramid. Reading the entries, however, it sounds more like a logbook than what we associate with diaries today. There are several other works with characteristics of diaries, like Meditations by Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, or the Pillow Books by Japanese court ladies. But it wasn't until the Renaissance that people started to write diaries that resemble the modern version of today, containing opinions and personal thoughts and feelings like the ones I introduced to you earlier. With cheap paper slowly replacing parchment in Europe in the early Renaissance, writing materials have become cheaper and much more accessible. Maybe this moved people to start writing about topics that weren't considered worth recording before. And with Johannes Gutenberg starting the printing revolution with his printing press, printed books started to spread, and so did the ability to read and write. There was also a change in the minds of people. Individualism started to spread. People became more self-aware, and with how quickly things started changing during the Renaissance, people felt the need to capture and record what was happening around them, and what they thought and felt during these times. An example would be the Journal du Bourgeois de Paris, combining records of historical events between 1405 and 1449 with personal opinions, and later the diary by Samuel Pepys, that fully made the jump from objective to subjective recording of daily events. Keeping diaries and journals isn't just valuable for recording history, it's also supposed to have personal benefits. But does it really? Well, yes and no. The scientific literature is conflicting. The problem is that the journaling experiences vary greatly. People journal about different topics in different ways and under different circumstances, making it hard to generalize. Yes, some studies show statistically significant improvements in well-being for specific groups, like people with PTSD, who improved mood and cortisol levels after supervised expressive writing therapy. Gratitude journaling also showed positive effects. Emmons and McCullough, who I mentioned earlier, found that listing things participants were grateful for increased positive affect, while listing neutral life events or hassles showed no changes in affect. However, the study left open whether journaling itself or just practicing gratitude in general caused this effect. The researchers acknowledged this limitation in their study. Disclosure also seems beneficial, similar to talking about emotions, as shown by Pennebaker in 1997. So, most research focuses on journaling in therapeutic settings, with less variability. But even there, generalizations can't be made. While journaling may extend therapy benefits, it could also lead to negative effects, like cognitive rumination or overthinking, as noted by Ruini and Mortara in 2021. But a meta-analysis, so a study evaluating multiple studies about a specific topic, found that despite some low-quality studies, journaling is a low-cost, low-side-effect therapy worth considering by professionals, but further studies are needed. As for everyday journaling, studies often lack the quality to be conclusive. However, it doesn't hurt to try if it's just for a hobby and not self-treatment. So for that purpose, it doesn't really matter if there's empirical proof. What matters is that you find journaling beneficial for yourself, whether as a creative outlet, for keeping memories, venting, or possibly finding patterns in your life. Before we move on, I want to mention the benefits diaries can have as a research tool, depending on what kind of data needs to be gathered. Especially for psychological and sociological studies, diaries can be very insightful at times, particularly for time-use research, documenting symptoms, or recording recovery from illnesses. They are often more beneficial than interviews, for example, because they are more reliable than our skewed memories. When considering a new hobby, most of us want to know what to expect and how easy or difficult it is to incorporate into our lives. So I tried to rate it in the categories affordability, accessibility, learning curve, and social aspect. Journaling doesn't have to cost much and it's really affordable. The minimum you need is just a pen and some sheets of paper, or your phone. It only gets expensive if you jump down the stationery rabbit hole and become fountain pen collectors or notebook hoarders. The latter I'm guilty of myself. But how could you resist this? Affordability, 5 out of 5. It's also one of the most accessible hobbies out there. It doesn't take up much space, you can do it wherever you currently are, and with help of the text-to-speech function on your devices, regardless of many disabilities. Accessibility, 5 out of 5. Journaling is very beginner-friendly and has basically no learning curve. I see many beginners asking the same questions, like how long an entry should be or how often you should journal. But it all comes down to your own preferences, so just try it out and have fun with it. See what feels right. Learning curve, 5 out of 5. It's definitely not a social hobby, mostly because it's so personal and done while alone, so social aspect, 1 out of 5. Overall, journaling really is a great hobby because it can be done by almost anyone in any life situation with minimal effort and great payoff. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a like and a sub. Thank you for watching.